See the signs, the bright lights, walk down the city streets tonight. You'll hear people calling for the truth, for the life, for the love we've buried deep inside that makes us united. Oh. So let's take this city, our souls are singing. There's a fire in our bones. I know we won't be defeated if love is leading. We're laying down our stones. It's killing me. We could be the saints down on our knees, lifting each other out of ashes, out of ruins. Hope will bring a new beginning if we break the silence. So let's take this city, our souls are singing. There's a fire in your bones. I know we won't be defeated if love is leading. We're laying down our stones.
How's it going, everybody? Corey here. Today is currently 10:39 a.m. and it is September the 28th, Thursday of 2017, and we are here today to continue with our lovely book, How to Stay Young by ByChristianD.Larson. What the prophet has dreamed, the scientist will prove to be true. We just recently got back from the gym. It's pretty hot right now. It's actually it's getting there. It's getting more hot. You know, as we reach more in the evening or the afternoon, it's oh man. I was going to get into all this friction and the sun being in the midpoint in the sky, having the most direct influence upon the earth when it's at the center, because it's like a direct, it's just all the energy from the sun is just hitting us directly. But anyway, that's an entirely another concept. We're here to not really talk too much about the sun or energy, but about getting your mindset into the right state of living in the eternal here and now. For now is the only time there is. Now is the only time that ever exists. But the past only exists within the brain cells, because it is a moment in time that exists now within a memory, and that the future has not come yet, because it is a product and it exists as a vision within our mind, and that the only time there is here and now. It's starting to sweat a little bit. So, without further ado, we're going to be going over chapter 10, and I am going to put on a study song for us really quick. So we just have it playing in the background as we go over this chapter. So we have brain waves. We'll put on alpha waves. Improve your memory super intelligence. Let's see if it says anything on here. So in details, it says alpha waves help us improve our memory, can even make better our intelligence. The brain is energy vibrational frequencies in that which result in brain waves occur. The brain is energy vibrational frequencies in that which result in brain waves occur. Is it just me, or does that sentence not make any sense whatsoever? The brain is energy vibrational frequencies in that which the brain waves occur. So I think they're trying to say is the brain produces energy vibrational frequencies in which results in brain waves occur. Doesn't really make too much sense, that statement. But really, brain waves are basically, when they're producing a brain wave, it's say they would have 14 hertz playing in one ear and then 10 hertz playing in the other ear, and the differentiation between the two would be the 4 hertz that are running through your mind, running through your brain, putting your consciousness into a certain state. It says the scientist Hans Berger, who invented a device called EEG, and that was created in science for doctors to use to help them understand their patients more in their states of being, their mental states, their psyche, which implies the measure of these frequencies. They classified and named according to the Greek letters beta, alpha, theta, and delta, or theta. It has been found that the alpha waves are waves of relaxation, the accelerated learning of super learning. When we're producing alpha waves, mind is on alert and our memory is potentiated. We produce when we are in a state of relaxation and hear special music that originates. Also, scientists have discovered that stress prevents the production of these important waves in the learning process. Productive and efficient work in a pleasant, peaceful, and happy state of mind. Now, it's interesting that they say that. Stress. Stress. Okay, where is it? Where is it at? State of producing. Discovered that stress prevents the production of these important waves in the learning process. Now, remember how we talked about what happens when we're in a stressful state of mind? Our mind is contracted. Our energies aren't so expanded. We're creating cortisol within the bloodstream, breaking down the cells and tissue of the body. And it's saying stress will prevent the production of these waves of relaxation, of a happy state of mind. Then it says, when you are reading, you will maximize the ability to read faster and capture more information per second. And then it gives you a description for, let's say, if you're on the job listening to it, for children listening to it, studying, listening to it, even as sleeping and doing math when listening to it. If you guys want to search that up and read it, go right ahead. It's under Alpha Waves, Improve Your Memory, Super Intelligence by Music Therapy. I'm sure it won't be too hard to find. It has about 2 million views. And with all that being said, and without further ado, let's get started with our chapter, shall we? So chapter 10, Mental States Produce Conditions of Age and How to Remove Them. Or mental states that produce conditions of age and how to remove them. To perpetuate the youth of the personality, all conditions of mind and body must be normal. When these conditions are not normal, the natural renewing process is interfered with, and to interfere with the renewing process is to produce the aging process. To ensure normal conditions in mind and body, every mental state must be in harmony with the principle and the purpose of life, because every mental state will produce in the system a condition similar to itself, and every state that is not in harmony with the purpose of life will produce a condition that is adverse. When adverse conditions enter the system, the natural process of the system will be disturbed and misdirected. Now, if you're just joining us, we're here on chapter 10. We've already gone through, obviously we've already gone through 9 chapters. But the main point he's saying here, now, for you, those of you that have already been with us through the entire time, we already know this, but for those of you who are joining us, in order to ensure that we have normal conditions in mind and body, we not only have to learn to think correctly, we have to learn to think along the lines of nature. Our subconscious mind, the body mind, is always working to maintain perfect health. God created this thing, this subconscious mind for you, so we wouldn't have to worry about doing it ourselves. It's they mention as the unconscious mind is the mind that is not aware of itself. It's not aware of its own works. And it's so true, because we don't have to consciously think about making a heart beat. It just happens automatically. That is because this power has been put under the direction of another mind, a different portion of the mind. It's the same mind, but it is another, it is an involuntary function of your mental forces. To ensure normal conditions in mind and body, every mental state must be in harmony with the principle and the purpose of life. They must be in harmony. You must think in congruence with the lines of nature, because every mental state will produce in the system a condition similar to itself. Remember, we produce and we become what we think about. Our habitual mental states will outpicture themselves in our reality. And every state that is not in harmony with the purpose of life will produce a condition that is adverse, meaning every state that is not in harmony with natural law will produce conditions of inharmony. When adverse conditions enter the system, the natural process of the system will be disturbed and misdirected, and the forces of nature will produce what the purpose of life does not aim to produce. In consequence, these forces will work against nature instead of promoting the purpose of nature. And as we've already said, the purpose of nature is to maintain perfect health and equilibrium, and to keep the body young and healthy. Your body never gives up on you. Why would you ever give up on your own body? Exercise, work on it, give it what it needs. That which is not working with nature is working against nature. If you're not working with your body, you're not working with your mind, you're working against yourself, you're working against God, you're working against natural law. And that is what produces all the negative things and experiences within our life. To train the mind to produce only those mental states that work with nature, states that will express only normal conditions in the system, the first essential is to remove adverse mental attitudes. And the second essential is to remove the three original causes of mental adversity. So we could start by thinking to ourselves, I am healthy, I am perfectly well, I am strong, I am good enough, I am worthy enough, I am enough. These are the type of mental states you need to have. You need to have positive mental thoughts about yourself and about the things around you. And when a thought enters your mind that isn't so positive, then just be aware of it and don't entertain it. And don't act upon it. You have that power. That's the power of our conscious mind over the subconscious. The watchman at the gate. We get to see a thought, entertain a thought, and decide whether we're going to choose to accept its reality or not. Remember, like they say, never be barred down to what somebody else's opinion of you is, because only you know, and only God knows who you really are. And somebody else's opinion doesn't matter. These three causes are anger, fear, and worry. And when combined with the four principal adverse states, will produce any and every adverse mental state that can possibly appear in the human system. So until we actually remove anger, the energy of anger, until we remove the energy of fear, until we remove the energy of worry, all these three mental states produce adverse conditions within the human system and in the human life. There's a quote, I want to say it's by Aristotle. I believe it's by Aristotle. It's been so long. It used to be written up on my wall. It was written up on my wall when I was still living in my old room. But he says, anger is a poison more harmful to the vessel in which it is stored in than anything that it could be exerted on. In other words, the energy of anger that you develop and just comes and is stirring within you does more damage to you than anything he could exert it on. We have to be very careful and we have to be very mindful. The four attitudes referred to are the heavy attitude, the serious attitude, the superficial attitude, and the excited attitude. When the mind is in a heavy or depressed attitude, the states and actions of the mind will become sluggish, and such states will produce conditions in the system that tend to ossify the cell structures. The reason why is found in the fact that all sluggish actions in the system decrease the power of the life force, and any living thing tends to wither, dry up, harden, and grow old when its life force is decreased in power. Those mental states that are heavy also tend to depress the physical system, and the actions of depression when coming in contact with cell structures, as they invariably do, will harden and ossify these structures. To prevent ossification is to prevent old age, because nothing can look or feel old until it begins to ossify. And ossification, however, is not produced by the laws of nature. It comes through the violation of the laws of nature. Therefore, when man no longer violates the laws of nature, there will be no ossifying process in his system, and he will continue to stay young as long as he lives. And remember, that is the reason for that being is because the body is continuously recreating itself non-stop. And if we're recreating old age conditions within our own body by simply living as an old mind, by thinking old and living in an old state of thought, that will produce and have its correspondence within our physical being. To remove the heavy attitude, the mind should be trained to live constantly in the upper story of consciousness, and should place itself in touch with those superior powers in the greater nature of man that can do whatever he may wish to have done. To dwell in mental depression is a mere habit, and is produced by the race belief that man is so limited in his powers and possibilities that he can realize only a small fraction of his normal ambition. However, when man learns the truth about himself, he will know that he is not limited, but that he has the power to do what he may have the ambition to do. And the way he does is that by entering into that state of being, by picturing that, by visualizing it, by thinking about it, and by doing the things necessary to become that, and to think along those lines, to manifest it within their own life. This is something that you can do. There is nothing that you can't have, be, or do. You can do anything in the world which you dream of doing. We just need to learn God's laws and to trust, because when we do learn these laws, we would be able to put our trust into the law of attraction just as we could put our trust in the law of gravity. That we know when we employ something correctly, that it's going to manifest in our life no matter what, because it is a law. Just like if you jumped off the roof of your house, no matter what, you're going to go to the floor from that law of gravity. When this great truth is realized, the present will become better and greater at once, and the future becomes as bright as the sun. There will be nothing to be depressed about. There will be nothing to worry about. There will be nothing to burden the mind with apprehensions of danger or misfortunes yet to be, because all ills are passing away. The causes of failure and adversity are being removed by the fuller expression of that greater power from within that can do all things well, and the mind can feel its own complete emancipation. And as our greatest teacher said, the truth shall make us free. And as you also hear some people say, at first it may piss you off, but regardless, it'll set you free, and it'll put you on the right track to knowing that, hey, my thought is creating the conditions in my life, and I need to stop putting those things, those elements into my mind that is interfering with the way I think. We must be willing to abandon all that we are and to move forward into that which we are meant to be. The mind that dwells in the realization of its own greater power knows that it can turn all things to good account, and that the closing of one door invariably causes the opening of another that opens a way to greater opportunities, greater attainments, greater powers, and greater joys. Sorry. It is therefore evident that such a mind will never feel depressed, but will ever live upon the mountain top of the illuminated faith, where the richness of all things can be discerned as clearly as the light of day. And when we get those negative thoughts that enter into our mind, we must banish them from our mind by counteracting it with a strong, positive self-suggestion. If you start having self-doubts, you say, no, I am great. I can do this. I can make it happen. Because the more we think about not being able to do it, the more we're going to produce those things into our life. But the more we think and believe that, hey, no matter what happens, I'm going to get out there, I'm going to perform, regardless of what people think, because I know as long as I keep putting energy in it, and I keep taking action on it, and as long as I keep thinking along those lines, then it'll manifest for me in my life. And one day people will see the success you have, and they will see that, hey, it's working in your life. And then, and only then, will you be able to do what you dream of doing by teaching everybody else that, hey, you can do this too. This is what I did. This is exactly what you can do for yourself as well. The serious attitude of mind will sour the chemical elements of the system, thus producing dissolution and decay among the cells. The system will thereby be clogged with waste matter, and what the system fails to throw off will ossify. This is the reason why people who take all the things so seriously have a hardened, wrinkled-up skin. Too much of the matter in their skin is dead matter that has withered up and turned hard. That they should look old and worn is only what could be expected under the circumstances. Now, I can say that I could be very serious-minded at times too, and that could be, that is. Sometimes you can be too serious. There's a time and place for everything. Sometimes you do need to be more serious than you are playful, depending on the situation it is. It all depends on the situation that you're in. But if you live from that state of being, then it'll become a problem, because it'll become your habitual state of being. To remove the serious attitude, train the mind to live in the conviction that man was made for happiness, and that the man who is filled with the greatest joy now is the greatest power for good in the world now. Because the greatest of all good is happiness, and heaven is here and now. That is by Christian D.Larson, and that is written in his book, Just Be Glad. Because the glad mind, it is a concept that Christian D.Larson puts. The glad mind is what produces the sunlight to burn through the rays of those clouds of darkness, and to dispel that negativity within your own thinking. We have to be able to think positive and know that we are the light, and as the light, we have the power of life. And it starts with our word, and the word comes from our thoughts. Thought being a product of mind, and mind comes from the world within. As within, so without. The world within creates the world without. It is the kingdom of heaven. For when we seek first this kingdom, in all its goodness and all its righteousness, all other things will be added unto us. Because it is through heaven, it is through the mind, that we could bring those things about into our life. The power of a smile is invincible, that is, when it comes from within. A single smile coming from the depths of soul joy will do more for the welfare of mankind than 10,000 sermons burdened with sadness and gloom. The man that learns to realize the full significance of this truth will completely change its attitude and will feel serious no more. The superficial attitude will prevent the mind from living in touch with the greater depths of life. In consequence, the mind will be unable to draw upon the greater forces of life, and will feel weak and incomplete when the limited superficial supply of power has been exhausted. To decrease the power of life is to cause the system to go down to weakness and age, because the life cells will wither up, harden, and grow old. And one reason being is because you enter a lower state of vibration. And as you enter into a lower state of vibration, you're just vibrating at a lower energy. Your energy is down, it's low. Remember, all the things that are of form take on their form by the rate of vibration. And if you have a low negative vibration, you're going to have a slow, depressed looking form. You're going to look like a disaster. But if you're in a high rate of vibration and you're happy, and you could You know, you feel people when they're happy. You can feel their buoyancy. You can feel the energy just emanating. You could see it. You could see their aura and the light that is just like they're glowing. You know, you can see the glow around their body. And somebody who's not in such a happy state of mind, or is, you know, kind of just gloomy, not only can you feel the gloom, but you can see it. You can see it. You can see it with more than just the physical eye. You can see just the condensed energy. They're just so contracted within themselves. And the contracted mind is not the outreaching, expanding mind, because we have to be able to reach our mind out to the forces around us in order to understand the forces around us. If we don't, then we're not going to be receptive to life. To remove the superficial attitude, the simplest method is to daily employ the conscious mind in directing the subconscious. To place the outer mind in conscious touch with the subconscious at frequent intervals will not only deepen and enlarge the actions of all mental forces, but will also cause the subconscious to give expression to a larger measure of life from its own inexhaustible supply. The excited attitude will produce confusion, discord, and misdirected actions throughout the system. The energies of the system will thus be wasted. The force of life will decrease. The conditions of age will follow. And the reason being is because if a mind gets too excited, they're releasing a lot of their energies just in misdirected, in misguided directions. You know, if you allow your energies to escape your mind and from the directions of your own thinking, you're going to be emanating in a lot of different areas, which isn't a bad thing. You know, you want that happiness. Sometimes you just want to not think about anything and enjoy being happy and be one with the things around you. But if we're too happy all the time, we never stay focused, then we'll never really focus our thoughts and really concentrate our forces on a specific task. Remember, there's a time and place for everything. To remove this attitude, the entire system should be trained to live in poise, in calm, and every thought should be so constructed that it will have an inherent tendency to produce poise. Now, Wallace D. Wattles talks about poise as well, and he's in the same way Christian D.Larson talks about it. He says in The Science of Getting Rich, I believe it is, that a man in a fearful state, or a hurried state, a worried state, or a state of ungratitude, they cut their connection from being with, you know, life. They cut their connection from the things that are happening around them because they move into a smaller, contracted state of mind. We must have poise. He talks about having poise because when we're always stay calm, and I'm still talking about Wallace D. Wattles. Wallace D. Wattles says when we're poised, the poised mind is a calm, strong, and balanced mind, while a hurried, weak mind, or a hurried mind, and a frustrated mind is a weak and agitated mind. Which is why we need to always meditate and to meditate every day, to bring our mind and to bring our thoughts, to bring our mind and our body into one, and to bring our forces to center all of our energy to being where we are now. When these four adverse conditions, there's a time and place for all of them. All of them are fine. They're all okay. It's okay to be very excited. It's okay, you know, we can't say it's okay to be superficial. Sometimes everyone enters that state. Well, yeah, it is okay. It's normal to be in these states of mind for a second, you know, but it's not okay if we live there. That's the thing, and I think that's what really Christian D.Larson is talking about, is not living from these states of mind, because when we're living in the poised mind, we're always living in the here and now, and that is exactly what he is trying to get across in this book, living in the here and now so we could stay young. When these four adverse attitudes are completely removed from the mind, a number of direct causes of old age conditions will disappear, and the mind will be placed in such perfect harmony with the constructive, youth-producing forces of the system that every effort to perpetuate youth can be promoted with the greatest of ease and efficiency. In addition, a number of adverse mental states will cease to exist, but to eliminate all such states, the mind must emancipate itself from anger, fear, and worry. Now, remember that quote that we had just mentioned? What anger is, being a negative vibration that will do more harm to the body than anything that it could be exerted on. When the mind is in anger, a number of cells are destroyed, especially in the nervous system. For the creative energies to rebuild those cells at once is practically impossible. But if they were not rebuilt at once and the waste matter removed, the system will be clogged. However, it is only the clean body that can stay young. Waste matter, when not removed from the system, will become dead matter. It will shortly harden and ossify, thus producing conditions of age within the body and mind. The natural renewing process of the capacity has the capacity to remove old cells, cells that have existed in the system a few weeks or a few months, and build new ones in their places. But this process does not have the capacity to replace at once new cells that anger has destroyed by the wholesale. Because even if these cells are continuously renewing themselves, or we're continuously in the mental state of anger, we're always going to be breaking down those cells anyway. Remember the power of the conscious mind over the subconscious. The conscious works with thought, and the subconscious works with desire and emotion. It is therefore evident that anger will overtax. That's why they say you have to bring the subconscious, the elephant, in the arena, in here with you. You have to emotionalize your thoughts to give those thoughts life and power. Because unless we give desire to what we're thinking, it's just a thought and exists in the thought realm, in the mental field, in the mind. Desire makes it tangible. In fact, it is therefore evident that anger will overtax the capacity of the renewing process. In fact, completely cripple this process at times, so that its effort to keep the system in a state of youth will fail to a lesser degree or greater degree. When the renewing process fails to promote its purpose, the aging process will gain a foothold in the system, and if not removed, will cause the entire system to fall into the habit of growing old. This habit, however, can be removed. All habits can be removed, but the prevention is always preferable to the cure. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. It is a quote. I don't know who I got it from. I read it back in high school and it's stuck in my mind because I used to write it on my arm all the time. To emancipate the mind from anger, every thought should be trained to think that all things are working together for good to him who is seeking only the good. There will be nothing to be angry for when all things are working together for our good. We cannot be angry with those things that are for us, and all things will be for us, ever working together for our good when we seek the good, and the good only with all the power of mind and heart and soul. When anger is completely removed, every feeling that is antagonistic will also be removed, and this is extremely important because the antagonistic actions of mind produce resistance to all the natural forces of the system, including the forces of growth. In other words, he's saying anger is not a part of the natural forces of God. Anger is not even a part of God. God is love. God is all love. God never gets angry with his children. Because the antagonistic actions of mind produce resistance in all the natural forces of the system. And once we develop a mental state of happiness, a habitual state of happiness, and we learn how to remove any state of anger, worry, depression, or fear by knowing that it is in our thoughts and being conscious of our thoughts and to really put in the work to change the fabric of our own mind, our own consciousness. You know, 10 years of negative thinking is not going to be changed by 10 minutes of strong, powerful, positive thinking. You have to create that habit, and you have to force your mind to think different. You have to force it. There is no other way. There will be nothing to be angry for when all things are working together for our good. Okay, I just read that one. When anger is completely removed, every feeling that is antagonistic, we just read that one. However, constant growth and development all through the system is absolutely necessary to the perpetuation of youth. Therefore, to permit resistance in any form to act in the mind, that is, to interfere with those forces that produce youth, and the perpetuation of youth will either be retarded or suppressed completely. To continue to stay young, the mind must train itself to resist nothing, and this becomes mere simplicity when every thought is created with a desire to work in harmony with the greater life that is in everything. When the mind is in a state of fear, the system becomes negative, and all the constructive forces of the system will reverse their actions, thus tearing down what had previously been building. The same results will follow when the mind enters into anxious states, troubled states, or states where strength is forgotten and weakness magnified. The mental actions of grief are wasteful, the system, and will cause decay in the tissues of the physical system. Regret, self-pity, disappointments, and similar states have the same effect, though generally in less degree. To perpetuate youth, however, everything that is destructive or wasteful must be eliminated completely from the human system. The selfish actions of mind will counteract the cells, and all abnormal cell contractions will cause the cells to wither, dry up, and ossify. To be selfish is to be abnormally self-centered. That is, the self attempts to absolutely establish itself within itself, thus producing the contracting tendency. And every tendency that becomes a ruling force in the mind will also become a ruling force in every cell of the personality. Because the cells are what? Part of the subconscious. And the subconscious is affected by what? Our thought. And thought is what? A product of mind. And mind is what? An intangible, invisible force. The brain is not the mind. The brain is not the man. The man is the mind. And the mind makes the brain. And the brain produces vibrations, or the mind produces vibrations that are being registered within every cell of the brain. That is why the brain groups itself and structures itself in accordance with every thought that we think, because thought is a vibration. And since vibration is a ruling force, this ruling force then, the ruling force in the mind will then also become a ruling force in every cell in the personality. That is cool. I like that. I like the way he put that. The selfish tendency, however, does not simply contract the cells of the body. It also contracts the faculties of the mind. Yes, the mind contracts. The mind shrinks when we enter into a smaller state of thought, a lesser state of thinking. The mind moves to a smaller state of being. And this explains why a selfish person always has a small mind, a small character, a small heart, and a small soul. The domineering actions of mind, and it's crazy because it's almost what the majority of we weren't taught to be great. We weren't taught to have an expanded mind. We weren't taught to have any of that. We were taught to have a small mind. We were taught to maintain a small character. We were taught to have a small heart and a small soul. We were taught that as kids. It's amazing because now that I say that, it reminds me of what we read through the Master Key System and how Charles F. Hannell says that the world was taught to be a worm. That's the actual word he uses. He says to be a worm, to be nothing. But the new way of thinking, the new thought way of thinking, the way of thinking which is gradually permeating the general consciousness will do away with all these conditions and it will lift up the consciousness globally. The consciousness will raise globally. And that is what our mission here to do, is to help spread awareness and to help people understand that the bigger they become in mind, the bigger they'll be able to create and to do those things and to manifest and to help all those people which they so desire and dream to help. It's so amazing, because I remember even going through How the Mind Works by Christian D.Larson. I have it written on my wall. Whatever you feel you can do, that you have the power to do. He says when the mind reaches a point where they're able to dream or think of something, they have an idea of accomplishing a specific goal, then you know that mind has reached a point where they're able to make it possible for themselves. And remember the law of attraction. There is nothing that could keep you from reaching your goal, because as you think and you focus your thought on the goal and what you're trying to achieve, and you have that mental picture and you concentrate, okay, that power of concentration, holding that thought in mind. Remember, thoughts are things and they become things. We will eventually become that which we are thinking about. And as we move into that habitual state of consciousness, that habitual state of being, we then take on the form and act that into the outer world, and we'll be then surrounded by those things, because not only do we become the person necessary to act that and influence the external things around us, but because of vibration and this intangible level that all of us are connected to, we are also being pulled and are being attracted to those circumstances and conditions in our life. Because remember, back behind all material, all matter, all form that we see is a vibration. And when we move into a state of vibration, those vibrations meet up with each other on a vibrational level, and they attract. They're pulled with each other through electromagnetism. It's amazing. It's amazing. As within, so without. As above, so below. The domineering actions of mind produce hard, forceful thinking, and all such thinking produces a hardening effect upon the cell structures. But the greatest enemy to perpetual youth is worry. When the mind worries, it places in action the chief cause of stiff backs, brittle bones, dried up tissues, ossified cells, and wrinkled faces. The reason why is found in the fact that worry is the deepest of all the adverse mental states, and thereby affects the very chemical life of the system. Because why? Worry produces cortisol. When the chemical forces of the system are acted upon by worry, they produce false chemical elements in the cell structures. They produce cortisol within the bloodstream. In the bloodstream, it is through the bloodstream that all the cells and tissues get everything they need in your body. And these false elements will harden the cells, the same as if they actually were calcareous? I think it's calcareous deposits. Calcareous. Let's look that up really quick. When the mind worries, it actually produces calcareous elements in the system. That's probably another word for false. Not so good. Calcareous. It says of, containing, or like calcium carbonate, chalky, calcareous earth. So the harden, it's another word for hardening, to calcify. Like calcium within your body, your bones are made out of calcium. Calcareous. That is how it's pronounced. So we were right. Calcareous. Let's move on. To eliminate calcareous, to eliminate ossification, to eliminate hardening deposits from the system has been looked upon as a secret for perpetuating youth, and many methods have been advocated. Among these, distilled water has been looked upon with the greatest favor. But so long as a person worries, he will not stay young, no matter how much distilled water he may drink. Because worry exists within his mind. The worry exists within the mind. It is not part of the water. It is part of the mind. When the mind worries, it actually produces calcareous elements in the system, just as it produces poisons when angry. Therefore, so long as a person worries, his bones will become brittle, his skin will become dried up, his cells will wither, the tissues of his system will harden and ossify, his face will wrinkle, and every atom in his body will feel old and look old, regardless of how many methods, physical or metaphysical, he may employ for preserving his youth. The elimination of worry will not alone ensure the perpetuation of youth. There are also other causes of old age, but the elimination of worry is one of the essentials and is made possible through the constant development of a real, living faith. The man who has real faith in the Supreme, real faith in himself, real faith in everybody and in everything will never worry. He will know that all things are for him because all things are for him who has real faith. And it's amazing because all things really are for us. For the thing that makes up something else is made from the same thing that we are made out of. There is no separation. The only separation between us and the external is within our own thinking. We're only separated from our neighbor, from our brother, from our sister by our own thoughts. But we're forever connected because even our thoughts are connecting with theirs on a level. Remember, it's Philippians. I think it's from Philippians. I just put this post on my Instagram the other day when he says in the Bible, that man shall not wage by flesh and blood, but by spiritual wickedness and principalities. By spiritual wickedness and principalities, by spiritual principles or spiritual wickedness. And what is thought? Thought, as we've learned, is the only product of spirit, of mind, of the invisible forces of all of nature. The majority of the world is not aware of this invisible force of nature. They live in distractions. They live in a world that has been pulled over their eyes to blind them from the truth. The truth that their thought creates their reality, and that their habitual mental states will project themselves, and they will be surrounded by their own thoughts made into material things. That we become what we think about, and we can literally have, be, or do anything that we want in this life. We just need to learn how to be a master of our own thinking, because as Charles says in the Master Key System, it is the man that is the master of his own thoughts. Only the person who could be the divine thinker of his own thoughts will ever take a master's place. Thought rules the world. To have real faith in all things is to place the mind in touch with the superior life in all things, and that life is not against anything. It is for the advancement of everything. Therefore, when man is in touch with the superior life, the upper region of existence, nothing is against him. All things are with him. He has nothing to worry about because all things are coming right. When all things are with us, the desires of the heart will surely be granted, and we shall reach the very highest goal which we may have in view. When man enters that upper region of thought and consciousness, where he lives in touch with the universal, he actually feels that all elements, all forces, all things, and all persons are with him, and to feel even the slightest degree of worry is impossible. The same realization, the realization of the truth about man's real, superior state of being, will also eliminate fear. To remove selfishness, the mind should cease to live for the personal self, and should live solely for the attainments and the realizations of the superior self. There is a superior something in man. This something is the real man, and to live for this something is to remove everything from human life that is not in accord with real life. And what is this real something that is the superior something within man? And that is the spiritual part of man, which is the real man himself. Now that is the end of chapter 10 of mental states that produce conditions of age and how to remove them. And we've learned that the four mental states was worry, fear, anger, and and superficial attitude. Let's go ahead and look it back really quick. Let's see. Dang, was it really that many pages ago? Oh, there was only three causes. Worry, fear, and anger. There's only those three. So, we must learn how to remove those mental states. And when we find that we enter into those mental states, and when something happens that causes some type of frustration or anger to develop within us, know that it is only a current of energy. You know, we have the ability to choose whether we're going to entertain that energy or whether we're just going to foo-foo it off and say, you know what, this doesn't bother me. You know, I don't care what you think. I don't care what you say. You know, it doesn't matter, because I know, and I know what I'm doing, and I believe in what I'm doing, and you know, there's no reason for you to worry about it. There's no reason for you to fear anything about it. Or if somebody else doesn't approve of what you're doing, we don't need to worry so much about what they think of us, you know, regardless if it's a loved one, you know, because that as long as we continue to live in fear from those that we love, from being the person who we know we truly are, we're not going to be alive, and we're never going to truly live, and we're not going to be able to fulfill that purpose. God needs you to do what you were meant to do, what you were created to do, and what you dream of doing. Don't let somebody else stop you. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and end this right here. This one did go pretty long. It was a pretty good chapter. A lot of things to go over during it. If you made it, like I said, if you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. And we still have more to learn, more to go over. With that being said, I will see you in the next video.